Should be good, Dominic.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Eric. I want to welcome everybody to the Town Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for May 24th, 2023. And if you could rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Noreen, if you're there, if you could do the roll call, please.
Chairman Payne,
Here.
Commissioner Claffey,
He is, he called me. He says he's running late, so we'll see if he comes in shortly. Thank you.
okay. Commissioner Haggerty, Commissioner Havens,
Here.
Commissioner Linares, Commissioner Trister,
Here.
Commissioner Woods,
Here.
Commissioner Droz, Commissioner Pascarelli.
Here.
Okay, very good. We're gonna,
Okay.
and we have Commissioner Fox here. A new commissioner. Okay,
Oh,
Noreen?
Okay, fine.
All right, thank you.
You're
And
welcome.
we're gonna have, Gia, would you sit for Commissioner Haggerty? And Mike, we're gonna have you sit for Commissioner Linares. Thank you. Approval of the agenda. I don't think there's any changes.
No changes.
Okay, we're at public participation. If there's anybody in the public or anybody online that would like to speak to the commission.
We do have someone with their hand raised on the Zoom. You.
Hi, Rose Lyons. I'm sorry.
Hi, Rose.
Hi, Rose Lyons, 46 Elton Drive. I just wanted to welcome Mike Fox back to the table. Nice to see you there, Mike.
Thank you.
And thank the rest of you too for all that you do, but it's nice to see Mike back with you. Take care.
Thank you, Rose. Anybody else online or in the meeting like to speak? Anybody else have their line up?
Mr. Chairman.
All right. Hearing none, we're going to move on to our zoning enforcement officers report. We have
Quick question.
we have a few things here on here. Does any of the commissioners have any questions for our zoning enforcement officer? No questions? Very good. Do you have anything else you'd like to add, Eric?
Nope, not this time.
Okay. Very good, thank you. We'll move on to remarks by commissioners, if anybody has any remarks. Hearing none, we're gonna go to the first public hearing. I'm gonna ask the secretary to read the procedures for our public hearing.
Certainly.
Oh, I'm sorry. There is no
Yeah.
public hearing. This is new business. I apologize. So we won't be reading any procedures. There's no public hearing. Next thing on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. We have TPZ regular meeting minutes of 4/26. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion made by the secretary. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Gia. Any corrections? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously for the minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I'll abstain since I wasn't here.
Very good. We have one abstention. Okay, the first thing on our business is, new business is petition 0923. I'll ask Commissioner Woods if you could read that petition, please.
Petition 09-23, site plan modification to remove the stormwater basin chain link fence. Applicant AA D'Onofrio Building and Development LLC. Contact is Alan Bongiovanni, owner AA D'Onofrio Building and Development LLC.
Mr. Chairman, just for those who are looking along on that, that was a older description that's on the screen. The description that was read was the one that was posted in the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, staff, good evening. For the record, my name is Alan Bongiovanni, a licensed land surveyor in the state of Connecticut with my office address at 170 Payne Road here in Newington. As Commissioner Woods stated, I'm representing AA D'Onofrio Building and Development Company. We're here on the Peckham Farm subdivision, which was approved a couple years ago by this commission. I'm sure you're all aware it's under construction at this point. The road is built to the binder and several of the houses are under construction at this point. An issue has come up with some of the buyers and potential buyers with the detention basin. This, if I could.
Should be able to share your screen.
As a Zoom. Probably should have been.
Log in through Zoom, Alan, otherwise the public can't see it.
I'm gonna be able to do that because I don't have that email here. Could I give you the?
Absolutely.
Drive?
You want to put it up?
As I was saying, there's a detention basin on the rear of lots 15, 16, 17, and 18. That was designed as part of the subdivision. It's there to attenuate the increase in runoff from the impervious construction that's happening on the site. During the initial design phase of this subdivision, and we were working with the town staff, because we have much more permeable soils in this area than most other locations in the town of Newington. We initially attempted to design this as a infiltration basin where there really is no outlet. The water accumulates in the basin and then it percolates into the ground. Most of the results, test results we had at the time were exceptional. The worst test we had was okay, but it wasn't as good as the other results. Normally, when you design something like this, you'll take the lowest result. We think it was an anomaly in the soil, whether it was areas that were disturbed, but it didn't drain as well as the others. So working with the town staff, we determined that a normal detention basin with an outlet control structure would be appropriate for this area. It allowed us to reduce the footprint of it, and that's what we did. As a infiltration basin, there's no outlet till it percolates into the ground or it evaporates into the sky. And which would mean it's going to hold water for a longer period of time. Oh, thank you, Eric. The area we're talking about is just above my marker. It doesn't show up on the screen, my laser pointer. But this, as Eric's tracing it, oval shaped or oblong structure is the detention basin. At the time of approval, the town engineer, or the time we designed this, town engineer recommended that we construct a chain link fence around the basin for security, for safety, as this basin initially was intended to hold water at a deep level for an extended period of time. Because we redesigned it as a detention basin with an outlet structure. Those numbers have actually changed significantly as far as the amount of water that goes in there and the time that it takes to dissipate. Eric, can we go to the next slide? And if we scroll down, this is part of the drainage computations for the project, and this is a hydrograph report. The sheet that we have up there is for a 100-year storm event. And it basically shows the lower left-hand corner is 0 hours when the storm would begin. And going to the right, it goes out to a 24-hour period. Going up, it starts at a certain elevation, our base elevation of the structure. And then each grid line or major grid line would be 1 foot in elevation. During a 100-year storm event, the first 6 hours, basically there's no accumulation of water to speak of. As you get to about the 6-hour period, then the bulk of the flow comes in and you'll see that the elevation increases, but it doesn't get to 2 foot of elevation till about 6 hours into the storm. One of the comments from the town engineer about this, it's a safety factor. It's additional safety if you have the fence in there. Because it's such a slow accumulation of water and it doesn't increase rapidly till you're 6 to 8 hours into the storm, we don't think it's going to take anybody by surprise. If the people that live in those houses have children and it's been raining for 8 hours, I don't think their children are going to be out in the backyard playing. And I think that's typical of all detention basins in residential areas. I'm going to go on to show some pictures in a little bit of several of the basins around town where it's common practice to build the detention basins. We have in our regulations a notation that says if safety is an issue, I'm going to paraphrase, then a fence may be considered, but no direct or no definitive language. We deferred to the Connecticut DOT drainage manual, and they have specifics as to when you would apply a fence to a detention basin. And we don't believe this meets any of the requirements. You need rapid stage increases would make escape practically impossible where small children frequent the area. Again, a rapid stage, it doesn't get a rapid increase till about 6 to 8 hours into the storm. Water depths exceed 1 foot or 1 meter or 3 foot for more than 24 hours. That hydrograph, that previous graph shows that the maximum period where it would exceed 10 hours, 3 foot is a 10-hour period. Then side slopes equal to 2 to 1 vertical, 2 horizontal, which we have 3 and 4 to 1 slope. So it's much more gradual than the DOT requires. Because we have good soils in here, that graph that we showed is actually much more conservative than actual practice. We know that the water that goes in there and all the storm drainage is constructed now, it goes into the basin and it percolates into the ground. We haven't had a 100-year storm, but we had 1.5 inches to 2 inches of rain last Saturday, and I'm going to show you some pictures of the basin in a minute. There's a very small area that it discolored with the muddy water. It probably got to a height of 6 to 7 inches along the outlet structure because it is absorbed into the ground fairly quickly. So although our computations demonstrate if it was not impervious soil, how it would react, we believe the ground's going to absorb much faster and in all storm events have a lesser depth to the stormwater being stored. Eric, if I can go to the photos and
I got you.
start, Paul.
Paul's
Sorry.
working on them, yep.
Share it on a different screen because it's a different application.
So this first picture is one of the town-owned detention basins. This is the Newington Industrial Park central component of the park on Payne Road. They're a very large detention basin. I showed it, and it really is as tongue in cheek, because this is something that I've always complained about that's never been maintained properly. But this is a detention basin that's probably 200 by 400 feet, a couple acres in size. It's probably 6 or 7 feet deep, and there is no protection around it. And, you know, it's so heavily vegetated that if somebody was in there, you may not find them for years. If you can move on. Next photo, that's just showing Payne Road. The next one, please. This is the Woodlands. This is at the corner of Sterling and Barkledge. And this basin here, it's very significant. It captures most of that 25 or 30 acre watershed. It's probably about 8 feet deep. It's in a condominium complex with 100, I think it's 62 units. There's no fencing there. Next. This is the same structure, just a different view. Next, please. This is West Hartford Road, Brindley Commons. Detention basin about 4 foot in depth, just east of the buildings and just west of the West Hill Road. I'm sorry, West Hartford Road. The next one is the North Basin on the same project. That one seems to be used as a dump. Next, please. This is Piper Brook condominiums on Willard Avenue, between the Spectrum Office Park and the 7-Eleven in that area. Again, a large detention basin with a depth of probably 4 to 5 feet. The height of the structure that you see in the middle of the picture at the top of the grass is probably 4 foot out of the ground. The next one. This is the detention basin at the Peckham Farm. And you'll see in the middle of the photograph, I wish this pointer worked on the photograph, but you'll see the brown area in the middle. That's the area that was inundated with water in this last storm event this past weekend. There's a small puddle in the middle because this is also functioning as a sediment control structure during construction. It's only ponding water because there's sediment that's accumulated there. When the basin's finished, when the surrounding areas are stabilized, that layer of silt and sediment will be scraped out, it'll be topsoiled and seeded, and it'll have the same permeable conditions as the rest of the area around it. To the right in the middle, right there, that's a control structure. If we can go to the next 1 or 2 photos, Eric or Paul. There's actually, and you don't see it very well in this photograph, there's a stain. That black thing is filter fabric over the entire structure, so that if any water was to build up, none of that silt or sediment would make it out. There's a stain on the bottom of that black, which is about that far out of the ground. So the water came up a couple inches. It didn't even reach the outlet for that from this recent storm. The next one, Paul. This is the detention basin at the bottom of Rockledge Drive on Culver Street. This is a structure, that outlet structure is probably 6 or 7 feet in height. I'm going to estimate that this is probably deeper than 8 foot. Again, nice subdivision, no fencing around, and safety has never been an issue. To my recollection, on any project, we've never had an issue with the detention basin. With safety, with someone being injured, caught in it, a drowning, anything like that, nor can I recollect anything in the state of Connecticut that's happened in my career. The next one, please. This is another picture of the same one, just to show the size of the outlet structure. This is another view. Paul, the next one. And then this is just down the street, just north of Rockledge. This is the detention basin on Culver Street that services Apple Hill. Again, this is a structure that's a detention basin that's probably 7 or 8 feet deep. You've got a 4 or 5 foot structure there. It's across the street from multifamily housing. It services multifamily housing. And again, there's no fencing. I think you can go one more photo. That might be it.
That's the end one.
Okay, thank you. I think the photos demonstrate what we have in town, how we've dealt with these. I can appreciate the town engineer's position, or acting town engineer's position, that it would increase safety, and you can't argue that. It's like saying, if I had a fence around Mill Pond, it would be safer. It wouldn't look like Mill Pond does, but it would be safer. We don't think it's a safety risk now. Our engineer, Joe Perugini, who designed the project, did submit a letter to our new engineer, Mr. Zabidio, today, confirming what I had testified here, and that his opinion, based on his review, it's his opinion that the perimeter fence is not warranted. And we don't think it is. To be consistent with the other developments, we would like to have this removed from the project. If it had been designed, or if it had been designed and approved as an infiltration basin, that's a different story. I fault myself for not requesting to remove it at the time of the original approval, and for that I apologize. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Commissioners have any questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chairman.
Things.
No, I tend to agree with you about the, 8 hours of rain. I'm not letting my kids play outside, but I'm just curious. So if it rains all day Saturday and there's 2 feet of water by 8 o'clock on Saturday, what happens on Sunday? Will it be by Sunday morning? Will it have dissipated?
That small of a storm will dissipate. If you go back to that graph, that small of a storm will dissipate in a couple hours. The worst case that we plan for is a 24-hour. Too many papers here. A 24-hour storm, and a 100-year storm at 32 hours is going to be completely drained.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Any other questions? Sure, go ahead, Commissioner.
Hi, my question is about just what happens after, let's say, this board approves removing the fence. And if something happens, who then retains the liability for maybe something happening?
Well, I would think they would come to sue Mr. Denorfi, they'd come to sue me, and probably sue the town of Newington. No.
Yes, Commissioner Woods.
There's a pond on the property owner also.
Yes.
Is there any requirements to have a fence around that pond?
There is none.
Okay. Again, just to the best of my knowledge, we don't require, if there's a stream going through a property, we don't require anybody to put up a fence.
No.
The only retention basin that I know of in town, and there might be more, but the one at Target. And why that's fenced in, I have no idea.
Yeah.
To my knowledge, for the 20 years the building's been there, it's never had water in it. But I see no issue with having the fence removed. I think it'll end up probably being more of a maintained area, and it would be more of an asset as far as the people and their yards. Again, I see no problem with it. So I would be in favor of waiving the fence.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner Woods. Any other commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Fox.
Yeah, I wasn't here when the original application was made, and having had a lot of experience, as a member, and there being some controversy about town maintained or even private maintained retention and detention basins, but there never was a fence. And so I don't know why they would why they would require a fence, why the board required a fence at the time. The one question I do have, I saw in the photo, it was all bare. Are there going to be any buffering or any vegetation?
There is a special seed mixture that's going to go on the final base of that, something that'll uptake nutrients a little more than normal grass, and the side slopes will be grass, but it's not to be landscaped.
Okay, thank you.
You don't want trees growing inside there, basically.
No.
Just a maintained area.
And there's language on the plan that with the seed mix that we've specified, it's to be cut to a height, I think 12 inches twice a year.
One more question, Mr.
Certainly,
Chairman.
go right ahead, Commissioner.
And alluding to, Mr. Pasquarelli, it is, you've never met. Anybody know if there's any instances of anybody falling into the area, any children getting hurt at any, because I'm
I
just
don't
bringing that
recall
out to
any.
put it on record. I've never heard of any, so.
I don't recall any. I'm gonna tell you, when somebody drowns in a pond swimming in the state in the summertime, it's all over the news. If somebody fell into a drainage system and got injured or worse, I would imagine we'd all know about it. And I don't ever recall any instance like that. Again, these are in yard areas where it's private property, the yard areas, but the people live there. It's not an absentee thing. It's not like the town of Newington Industrial Park, where it's kind of behind businesses. So the weekends and nights, nobody knows it's there. This is going to be open to everybody, including the cars driving by. And I got to say, when it's going to take 6 or 8 hours for a significant amount of water to accumulate in there, kids aren't going to be out there playing. It's just not going to happen.
And one other thing, am I correct in second, I thought I read that those that the homeowners in the area will be the only ones responsible for maintenance?
So they're responsible to maintain the grass in that. There is some responsibility of the town in the drainage because it captures town's road water drainage. So there is some responsibility on the town's part as well. But the day-to-day maintenance, the weekly maintenance, and that is the homeowners.
Thank you.
I would suspect that the percolation turned out to be a lot better than you originally thought over there. And I tend to agree with Commissioner Woods that you end up with a better product, a well-maintained area without the fence area. So I don't have any problems with this either. Thank you very much. I'm going to go to the staff just in case they have something they'd like to add.
Most of all this is actually as presented and as noted is all laid out in the memo. The town engineer who started actually on Monday is online. He's available if there are any questions either, but for me, it's pretty well, laid out in the staff memo. As noted, the responsibilities, there is a easement filed on the land records that codifies those responsibilities for the basin, who's responsible to maintain what. And again, Newington's responsibility is just specifically to the flow of rainwater across the easement. So again, as far as, the piping, that type of thing, how that works, but it is kind of a limited responsibility for just the stormwater and those apprentices that relate to it.
Very good. Thank you, Paul. Very good. Thank you very much, Ellen. Okay, the next thing on the agenda is old business, petition 0923. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Commissioner, make a motion, petition 09-23, site plan modification to waive the requirements of a chain link fence. Applicant A. Northia Building and Development LLC, contact Alan Von Giovanni, owner, A. Northia Building and Development LLC.
Second.
He's going to read the motion now.
Motion to approve, move to approve the site plan modification, remove the fence around the stormwater basin.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I have a second? Commissioner
Second.
Fox? Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone opposed? Moves it unanimously. Thank you very much.
Good luck.
You gotta get used to it again.
Yep, no problem, Commissioner. Okay, we have a few things, petitions for public hearing scheduling. I'll ask the town planner if he'd like to review anything on that with us.
Again, petition A, 823, we spoke about previously, so that's been sent out to CROG. They've already sent us the notice saying no regional impact. And then the other one is a special permit again for a double-sided halo lit freestanding sign. There's an existing sign on the location. No past approvals could be found for it, so they're kind of going through. They've been very easy to work with, and we look forward to their presentation.
Okay, very good. Any questions for the for the planner? All right, the next thing on the agenda is our town planner's report.
So item A is the current land use applications as noted in the agenda, that those are available. There's a link to it. So then moving on to item B, projects under construction and regulations. So the main projects under construction, I'll be advanced because I can't advance. So for, this would be 550 Cedar Street. The governor held a press conference at the site the other week, highlighting, his his platform for housing in Connecticut. They're actually continuing at well pace. They're striving for a September occupancy date. They're moving well on the buildings, and they're working, as everyone can see, the work on Cedar Street that's required by the DOT. I just have a couple photos to show you. So this is the clubhouse. It's all, sided, and I think interior work is ongoing. You have the building in the back, well closed in. Things are weather tight. At the last meeting we had, they were actually just working on roughing. So in that time, they've rapidly progressed and are moving forward. And then we have the second building that's on the site, again, moving towards completely being weather tight, progressing rapidly on the site. There is one other building that does not have the building permitted for it yet. It is kind of a copy and paste of these buildings that are already there, so that process should be relatively rapid when they come in for the permit. But they're moving quickly on the site.
I think they just got financing too, approval for that.
That helps.
Yeah.
Well, you would hope as you are constructing the onto the third building.
No, I'm pretty sure the state finally approved it. So.
Yeah, and then they have a lot of partners in this project at this.
This is workforce housing.
Correct. Yep. Next site, as we all know, 333 Berlin Turnpike. Two of the commercial buildings are closer to completion. You can see one of them right here, which has currently has a permit for interior fit out. So there's two areas that currently have those. So again, people are coming in, they're working on the site, but actually the tenants are starting to move forward too while they're progressing. So this building is well along its way. It's primarily interior, the first building. The second building next to it, again, well on its way, well closed in, storefronts, moving along. The third building on the site, as you can see, there's still some work going on. The storefronts are in, the crew is there working on the facade. So they should move pretty rapidly on that. And then the fourth building, which is closer to the entrance coming in from the Berlin Turnpike, as that one is not as advanced. It's not closed in yet, but as they continue to move to the site, they are making good progress. And then the final picture I have is just the front of the grocery store. Again, there's work to be done on that site, just kind of give you an idea of where they are in progress. So that's 3333. From there, 227 Payne Road, the 149 unit residential. There's a significant amount of lumber on site, so they're beginning to get ready for framing. So they're moving along there. We have 7793 Payne Road. So this is the swim school that was approved by the TPZ in April 2022. It's a 11,170 square foot building. The Safe Splash Swim School will be taking up 7,130, with the remainder of it, the 4,000 square feet roughly, being retail space. So they have actually cleared the site of vegetation. They haven't started grubbing yet. They posted their erosion bond, and we're going to be working with them as they go through the process. And then 712 Cedar Street, that's the 122 unit hotel. Anyone who's driven by there recently can see they are rapidly progressing with framing. They're very aggressively building on that site. So that's all good to see that moving forward. The site activity where there's no development plan submitted to date, we all know 15 Kitts Lane. I've been talking with the developer on that, the owner. They will be progressing to continue cleaning up the site. I've noticed them about the grass that's growing on the site, that they do still need to maintain that. So I hope to see some progress very soon on that, including cleaning up the stumps and cleaning up the site. And the other one that people are maybe aware of is that 67 Payne Road, the old Ingram & Company nursery, recently transferred ownerships. We have received calls asking, what's going on, what's the site, but nothing has been submitted to date. So that's as far as development projects currently right now. For regulation updates. So this was discussed at one of the last meetings. So this is the Clean Air Act. And this is the section of the Clean Air Act that requires municipalities, again, shall require each new construction of commercial buildings or multi-unit residential buildings with 30 or more designated parking spaces. They're required to put in the infrastructure for 10% chargers. Again, this is not, they're not required to put in the chargers. It's to kind of add that future proof when the site is under construction, when everything is ripped up to put in the conduit, the handholds. Again, the most expensive part of this is probably looking at the actual electrical equipment, making sure your electrical equipment is spec to be able to handle those chargers. But if that's something, if a developer knows ahead of time, it's easier to do it first and then rather than retrofit. Again, this is a state mandate. It's Public Act 2225. So from there, I wanted to kind of go into is, so this is my thoughts, initial thoughts on how to address it and the regulations. And this is what would be required for just compliance with the regulation. Again, it's putting in a definition of an electric vehicle charging station. Again, this lists all of them, level 1 through 3. Level 1s really aren't being installed much anymore. It'd be in a very residential type of setting. Level 2 is what's required by the state. And then level 3, of course, is the direct current fast charging, which they could set it up for that if they wanted to, again, future proof it, but they're given the option level 2 now or level 3 if they choose to put in the infrastructure for it. So from there, that would just be the definition of what the charging stations are. From there, I have a kind of a draft regulation that I was just looking at. Again, off-street parking spaces shall be dedicated to electric vehicles as follows. Electric charging infrastructure, any new commercial or multifamily development with 30 or more designated parking spaces for cars or light trucks. Again, that's taken directly, gotta minimize the screen. There you go. Taken directly from the Public Act. 30 or more designated parking spaces for cars or light duty trucks shall include electric vehicle charging infrastructure that is capable of supporting level 2 electric vehicle charging stations or level 3 fast charging station and at least 10% of such parking spaces. Such infrastructure includes, but is not limited to, underground conduit, junction boxes, and adequate electrical supply. So this is kind of my thoughts. Again, this is to be developed out with the commission on where the commission thinks it should go. Every different municipality, when I was looking through zoning regulations, some don't have it. And actually, what you'll see even in the CROG report, there are more that are coming out now that more people are adding this into their regulations. And the next slide I have is just kind of, there's another section that while I was in here looking at this, there's just a call for 6.1.1K rather than just 6.1. This just tells the developer if they're doing a site plan approval, they have to comply with a section. This just points to a subsection rather than the overall section. So while I'm in here making an amendment, this is something that I would like to change. But going from there, I wanted to give you to the next slide, kind of an impact of what is 30 parking spaces in development in Newington. So that would represent a 6,000 square foot retail store, business office, or finance institution. It would represent a 7,500 square foot medical or dental office. It would represent a 1,500 square foot eating establishment. Again, there's an asterisk there because that's the floor area open to the public. So the restaurant would be bigger than that with all the walk-ins, with the kitchen and everything, but that's the floor area that's open to the patrons. And then, of course, a shopping center would require one anyway, just by the bulk of the amount of parking it requires, because they're required to be 50,000 square feet to qualify as the shopping center. Under residential, again, pretty simple, 30 units with 1 bedroom, 15 units with 2 bedrooms, or 60 units of housing for the elderly. If you look at our standards for parking. So this is just to give you an idea of what the level of development that would require or would be impacted by this regulation. So from here, I would ask if there are any comments, questions, direction that the TPZ would like me to look into.
Can you define adequate electrical supply?
So adequate electrical supply, that's something, and that's actually a discussion we've had internally, that it would require our communication with the building department when the plans come in. That's that interlock between planning and zoning, zoning regulations and actually when it gets built. It kind of notes on the early, that's why the definitions actually have what the actual amperage breakers are and the voltage. So you would actually see that potentially on a plan that they would say, designed for this, and then it would be picked up on the building permits. But that's something that we would have to confirm when we're doing a zoning confirmation, when they come in for the building permits, that it's there, and we'd have to have the discussion with building inspectors.
So the electrical supply room for the structure would need to be able to at least meet that.
Correct.
Handle.
Yeah, to be able to handle,
If
so,
they did run the wire back in there, they have to have something to hook into.
yeah, there'd have to be, blanks in the breaker that are capable of being the correct, amperage, that the conduit is large enough for whatever type of wire that they need to pull. And again, that the overall service. And again, that would be something that, again, putting it up front in the zoning regulations, rather than us just relying on statute and quoting something and trying to pull it from there. And putting it up front in the zoning regulations does notify developers, okay, here's part of our parking regulations. Here's something that when you're designing your building, because most of the time when they actually come to TPZ, they don't have final electrical designs. They don't have final MEPs. It's a shell of a building with what the elevations are going to look like, rather than the internal design. They haven't gotten that far.
So it'd be nice, I guess, if we would be able to give them some guidance when they get here, right?
Yeah, and that would be, a lot of that would be either in pre-development meetings or in post-approval meetings, bringing in the building official, going over what's required. I've had some success in the past, a lot of success actually having people come in for pre-reviews, even with the building official. So that'd be something that I would work with Doug on.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. This may not work for some redevelopment because the service might not be there, but certainly would work for new development.
Yeah, and that is a question for the commission too. Again, each town deals with it in a different way. This is the minimum standard that's required. Some towns, when they say when you redevelop over 50%, and to me, it would be redevelop over 50% and you impact the parking lot. If you're doing work in the area, it's economical to do this. If you're not doing any work in the area, for a good example is even without us having this in effect, Payne Road, what's the number on that? 227, Payne Road actually has 7% chargers, and they actually have the chargers on the plan to be installed. So they're already getting close to this threshold without even being there, and not even the infrastructure, the chargers themselves.
Okay. Any questions from any other commissioners? I think we all need a little time to think about this maybe, and then we can talk about it again on a future agenda, and maybe give you more direction.
If there's any information you would like me to provide in the next packet or anything like that, I'm happy to do so.
Fantastic. Thank you.
And then the other item to update you on is I have been, it was discussed at the last meeting or the meeting before about the flags. I have been looking for regulations. Pretty much across the board, most regulations prohibit them. So far, the only regulation that I can find that allows them is actually Winter Park, Colorado. When I've been searching around specific keywords, most Connecticut municipalities do not. I haven't found one yet that says you can have waving flags. Most specifically prohibit. So it could be something, the only one, sometimes they're limited to 24 square feet, 2 per, but then you have, again, if you permit 2, are 5 going to show up, and then you're kind of wrangling them. So that's something to consider, but I have not found any good examples in the region that actually do allow kind of moving, waving flags.
Thank you for researching that. We may want to consider allowing them next to the doors like we do the A-frame signs. But that's, we can talk about it at a future date. Maybe that might, if we allow a few next to the buildings or something, maybe that'll eliminate them in the right of ways. It's a possibility.
Yeah, during the research, the amount of companies out there selling them is amazing. Actually, going into the feather flag thing, it's a big thing. There's tons of articles about it, tons of this is why this is great for your business all over the place. So I understand why they're out there. If that's what people are getting, getting all that information from whatever sources they're looking at online that I was finding as well, that says, this will help your business, this is that. That's why they're showing up.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I've never been that big, on the, worrying about the A-frames and all the stuff, that, so it's interesting to me, to see that, at least one of the commissioners are, looking at all the signs that are all over the place and that's it. But I'll be interested in what we get to in the future.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner. Anything else, Paul?
No.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay, fantastic. Everybody's got their CROG letter. Next thing on the agenda is CROG letters, communications. Does anybody have any questions for staff concerning any of those CROG letters? We didn't get any other communications?
No.
Okay. All right, if there's nothing else from the commissioners, we'll move to public participation. Within the Zoom application, you could raise your hand if you'd like to participate during public participation. If calling into Zoom meeting by telephone, dial *9 to raise your hand to be recognized, or use *6 when recognized to speak by telephone. Is there anybody online?
Go ahead, Rose.
Hi, it's Rose Lyons, 46 Elton Drive, and just in general, and I know you don't go back and forth at this particular public participation, or you don't go back and forth at all, but when you mentioned workforce affordable housing on Cedar Street, it brought to mind conversations that I've seen on Facebook about affordable housing and where we stand in the percentage of getting to the 10% that we need for affordable housing. And I've been following this since the Dakota properties because the workforce affordable housing was interesting to me as a single parent 30 years ago. I would have liked to have seen something in Newington like that for myself. What I found interesting was that although I thought it was for people that were in the workforce, it's not just for people in the workforce. It can be for someone somewhat like myself, a senior who's looking for an affordable apartment here in town. There seems to be a lot of misconceptions about what affordable housing actually is, and I don't know, and I don't know whether you know if there's anybody else that's going to come in with a project such as Dakota did and that would qualify under the Section 830G, but it would be nice if somewhere in the town we could be directed to talk to people about what it actually is and who can actually apply for these units and how to go about it. I just happened to hear about it, and I talked to the acting town manager who referred me to Carol Lebrecht, who referred me to the management company for Dakota. But once again, like I say, I've been following this since Dakota, and I just recently had a correspondence with Mike Santoro at the Department of Housing because the U.S. Census for 2020 still has not been released regarding the housing stock here in town. And I know every year there's a list published, but the list that's published gives the up-to-date housing units in Newington, but it is based on up-to-date figures for that, but the housing stock in Newington is not up to date. They're using the 2010 census. So if in the future anything comes before you, I would like to see if you could possibly just explain to the general public the affordable housing under 830G. I know there was talk about Section 8. Well, Section 8 isn't covered under that, I found out by asking questions. But like I say, having heard about the workforce, the affordable housing, and at the town council meeting last night, and having you mention it today, brought it to the front of my brain that it was something that I was would like to see discussed. I don't know whether it would be at your table or at the town council, but in any case, I thought I would mention it. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thank you, Rose. Anybody else? Be my guest, come up to the podium. Absolutely. I believe it is, yes.
Well, hello. I'm going to switch from resident to CROG employee real quick. We are out for our plan of conservation and development and currently are doing our public participation. So right now we're just reaching out to folks and whatnot to kind of see how you want your community to be supported and then what priorities you want CROG to have in the future. So if you have any opportunities to speak to folks or if you just want to participate yourself, please feel free to contact me or talk to me after this and we can get in touch and make sure that we're in front of your people getting out there early. All right.
Fantastic. Would you mind stating your name for the record?
Sorry, Jacob Knowlton.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank you.
Anybody online?
No one else online has their hand raised, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, we're going to, hearing none, we're going to go to remarks by commissioners. I'm going to ask the planner whether or not, if not this meeting, maybe next meeting, maybe you could put something together explaining the workforce housing, what it is, and give us some information and maybe an update on where we stand with our 10% or not. One thing that people have to realize is as we get market rate housing in, then our percentage goes down because we're losing market rate. I mean, we're losing affordable. So it's a mixture there, and maybe you could take our updated stuff, what you know is coming, and add it all in and see where we stand. Because you have a pretty good idea of what's coming in and what's set aside for workforce.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about it too, it also includes CHFA loans.
Yeah.
And then right now during the turnover in the housing market, that will be updated by them, but of course we don't have every single CHFA loan that's listed in a spreadsheet that we track or something like that. That's tracked through CHFA. But that can also impact our housing numbers too. What we can hope is a bunch of, the market prices have gotten so high, it's very difficult for new time home buyers. That's actually something that was during the governor's press conference that they were talking about setting aside of funds, more funds for first time home buyers, which would help them if they could use them in conjunction with those CHFA loans, would get them affordably into Newington, into home ownership. So I'm hoping that, of course, the governor continues with his process as well, because that can help us as well.
Absolutely, because we do have a lot of affordable homes that should count.
Yeah, and it's the key thing, and I can put it all together too on how it's really determined. It's when it's either CHFA or deed restricted. There has to be something specifically restricting it. So of course, naturally occurring affordable housing. Again, I've been keeping an eye on the market, seeing what's going on that. And Newington prices are rising. They aren't at the same level as some other communities, which means it's more affordable to move into Newington, which is a good thing.
Very good. Commissioner Woods.
Because even like Section 8 vouchers don't count, correct?
Because I believe they do, because
because they're attached to the tenant, not to the house. So because I think we have a lot in town, but it doesn't help us.
Yeah, we do have a category, and I'll pull that together. There's specific category, rental assistance, CHFA, ones that are specifically owned by the housing authority, and then ones like Dakota that will be deed restricted. So all that's counted. And there's also looking at when your deed restrictions run out, and if they're not required to renew them, that's a threat to losing numbers off the list as well. So there's a lot of dynamics that go into actually what that number is for Newington.
It's not simple to calculate.
Very good. Thank you very much. Any other commissioners? Commissioner Fox.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I remember the first time I sat as a commissioner was at the turn of the century, around 2000. That's 23 years ago. Some people watching, and I don't know, maybe some people here as well. Well, maybe not. We were still in kindergarten. But the first, the first application I was a part of was Target. I think you remember that, Mr. Chairman. We spent more than one night kind of, right up until midnight, discussing Target. And that was kind of, and now we're not even 8 o'clock. I don't know what that says about the development or anything, but we have always heard from the town, and I heard from the town, especially when it was announced that I'd be back here, that, there are people that want to keep the small town environment, people that want the low taxes, of course, and commercial development. And this is, I think it's done, it seems a little easier now, but, but there's been an awful lot of development in the last 23 years that I've been. I don't know how much, I mean, for a town that had maybe 5% of open space developed, I think between the development, the commission, the town managers and this board, we've done a great job. How we're going to continue, I don't know, but it's going to be very interesting. And I know for one thing, and I'll paraphrase our 16th president, you can't please all the people all of the time. So I got a feeling in the future it's going to kind of perk up again, and we may be having, some interesting discussions here. And I want to thank you for the appointment. I want to thank you all for welcoming me, and I'm looking forward to another few years.
Thank you, Commissioner Fox. Appreciate you having coming back. Any other commissioners? John?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to take a minute to welcome Commissioner Fox back to the commission. When I first started, you were a resource that I could call in if I had a question, and I'm really excited that we have your expertise and your experience back here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. If there's any other remarks, commissioners, if there's not hearing anything else, I'd make a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Motion made in a second. Commissioner Fox, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much, everybody.